Well, how you doing, Doug? It's that time again. We have come to this, and that means it's time for another episode of Global Trade This Week. I'm Pete Mento, Mento LLC, and the TradeGeek podcast. And with me is my good friend Doug Draper, Uptime Logistics. Doug, how you doing, buddy?
Pete, I'm rocking it, doing great. Thanks for asking. Appreciate it.
Excellent. We want to thank our friends at Cap Logistics for allowing us to yet again come on the airwaves and pontificate about exciting topics of international trade, logistics, and economics, and to let people think about what we believe is going to happen next. And not wasting any time this week, Doug, you've got some doozies, and you won the coin flip. You won this week's rock, paper, scissors, as it were. And that means that you get to go first. So what is your first topic today, my friend?
All right. Well, Pete, before we jump into there, something I just noticed is that people can tell that you work for yourself and you're a consultant because every time you come on here, you got a hat on backwards and you're wearing a sweatshirt, where I'm still a W-2 guy because I have a collared shirt and a jacket. So there's the dichotomy of our two existences right there. Anyway, so here we go, man. So the first one that I have is referred to as urban logistics, right? And what I mean by that, and maybe a better way to add into that is like the donut cannot sustain alone. So basically logistics, right? And I'm referring mostly to final mile and kind of the e-commerce type of world. If you've been around any city, you know, there's DCs and warehouses popping up left and right, and they're slowly just going further and further and further away from the city center or the epicenter of the city because land's cheaper, they need more space and things of that nature. But you can only go so far away, and they're going to need to infill with warehouse opportunities and getting the product closer to the consumer. So the donut is not going to be sustainable. And what I mean by that is that contrary to popular belief in the post-COVID world and everybody moving to the suburbs because they want a bigger house and they're staying at home and they need an office instead of a dining room table, people are going to come back to the city, right? You're not going to have this younger generation that wants to live out in the suburbs with a family with 2.3 kids. So the city center, as they refer to it on the rehab shows, is going to come around. It's going to be live and it's going to be kicking. And the type of people that are going to live there are still going to shop e-commerce. They're still going to want deliveries. And at some point, you just can't drive 25 miles through traffic to get to a delivery on the 37th store of an 37th floor of an apartment complex, right? And so I think what's going to happen is there's going to get some creativity around where do we go, right? We got to get the product closer, and the consumer expectations aren't going to change. They're going to want deliveries in 1 or 2 days. So I think you're going to see some backfill of retail stores that may have gone out of business. I've seen Kmart could be a big one. I don't know how many Kmart locations I've seen around the Colorado area that are just boarded up properties. So I think you're going to have, a lot of infill and reusable space where it's going to be a full-on warehouse and distribution center because e-commerce isn't going away. Everybody talks about how the pandemic was an accelerator of things that were going to happen already. You got the consumer buying habits that aren't going to go away. And you're going to see a lot of infill, if you will. I think it's going to really change some of the dynamics, and there's going to be some creativity on how people use real estate closer in. So that's my first observation there, my friend. What's your take on that?
You talked earlier about maybe using empty office space too, trying to find void spaces in cities to get closer to consumers and large populations. I think that's brilliant. I know that in the past that some of these almost instantaneous, we'll deliver it in 2 hours or something. People have done using the last car in a subway in places like Japan, where they have put cargo in the last car of a subway. And then that subway, when it stops, the delivery person will run down to the subway platform where they have a special key. They get in, they get what they have to, run back up, put it to somebody on a bicycle who delivers it in the next couple of minutes. I mean, it's that instantaneous. So using cars on the subway, trying to find any void space where you've got any sort of open space. And again, that's stuff you've talked about in the past. But when you start moving away from that city center to suburbia, where space is cheaper, I think void spaces that have already been built on are even more inexpensive. When you have people that are coming out of COVID, the latest statistics are saying it'll be 2024 before we've got these low-paying jobs and a return back to full employment. So there's going to be a lot of empty space and utilization that's still out there, and it's going to take creativity to get there. That seems like a problem that computers, software, and an application is probably going to find a way around. I'm still a believer that Amazon's going to end up buying space in post offices. It's a problem that they can solve, right? They're a massive warehouse style, gigantic post office all over America that are under capacity, underutilized, and a postal service that needs to find some revenue. So it just seems like a marriage made in heaven. They keep dancing around it. Eventually, that's a way for those guys to find some love.
Yeah, it's gonna, like you nailed it. The creativity. There's gonna be some cool stuff that's gonna come down the pike to solve that problem because it's not going away. Yeah. I mean, our industry, this entire pandemic, our industry has not gotten enough credit. I'll keep saying it until someone listens to me. Our industry has not gotten enough credit for the amount of creativity that they have used to overcome some pretty epic problems for the past almost a year now, right? Where everyone said the whole world's going to fall apart. We're not going to be able to feed people. We're not going to be able to get vaccines where they need to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The 3PL, logistics, over-the-road, trucking industry, warehousing industry has met every challenge head on and absolutely kicked it in the jimmies over and over and over again. And it's never cowered, not one time. And I don't think that it's been given the kind of deserved attention and praise that it deserves for what it's pulled off. I can't say anything any better than that, Pete. So well said. And let's continue it. So what's your first topic today, my man?
Yeah. So here's one that no one's probably expecting me to say. China's back, baby. China's back. Let's hear it for our centrally controlled communist friends over there in the People's Republic. So the numbers for China are ridiculous. So January and February 2021 versus 2022, it's 87% increase year over year. And what's the difference, right? So you look at the commercial statistics, and these are not Chinese reported statistics. These are U.S. Department of Commerce statistics. There's a massive increase, and that has everything to do from the value of things that are being exported. So the cost of things like chips that are being exported, technology. You've also got a massive increase of American consumer spending and our confidence as American consumers. You have lowered unemployment in a lot of states. As an example, here in beautiful New Hampshire, where it is, I think, 19 degrees and sunny right now, people are much more confident because our unemployment rate is hovering at just around 3% a year into this pandemic. So people are spending money again on inexpensive things from China that they don't need with money that they barely have. So their economy is crushing it. And on top of that, they have not only come back to the numbers that they had in Europe, they're surpassing their exports to Europe. So Brexit has opened up new avenues for exports to them. They are surpassing their numbers to Latin America. It would appear that this huge trade war with the United States has actually catapulted their export numbers all over the world, and their relatively low exposure to COVID, their fast reopening of their economy, has put them in the catbird seat to be a leading recovered economy in 2021. China's back, baby. Team China for 2021. That's what it looks like, Doug. So, where's that going to go? If I had to be a futurist right now, I think you'd have to be a moron not to bet on a very strong Chinese economy sooner than later, and probably faster than any other developed economy in the world right now. And it makes me sick to my stomach to make that statement.
Yes. Yeah, I was trying to think of a song from the 80s that had something about back in it, but I can't think of anything right now. So put that off to the side and we'll come up with that. But yeah, I mean, Pete, I would agree with you 100%. Here's the deal. Not to use a Bidenism, but you can't pivot, right? Whenever you're a manufacturer, right, and there's tariffs that come out, it's easy to say, just make it in the US or just move it here or just move it there. I mean, there's so many things that are involved with undoing what these companies have done for decades. There's contracts, there's sourced materials, there's transportation agreements in place, there's people you've hired to manage it. And you can't just flip that and replicate it in a year, in 2 years, right? So the fact that people thought, oh, well, let's just make it somewhere else now that we have these tariffs with China, it just doesn't move so fast. So what ends up happening is the consumer buying habits change dramatically. They're still looking to consume and purchase. And what's happened is you can't pivot fast enough. So the infrastructure, the manufacturing, the supply chain to get to the manufacturing has always been there. And now that things are starting to pop again, we're still buying stuff from China. We're still making stuff in China. Maybe 5-10 years out, things will change. But my point is really you can't pivot so fast. So you just kind of hunker down and deal with it. And we're starting to see China benefiting from that. And the other piece is, the consumer buying habits, even when costs are passed on to the consumer, I don't think they're not blinking. I've made this reference before that, let's say my wife's buying a new sweater and she says, man, this sweater is like 15% more expensive than last year, but I get free shipping and it looks so good on me, I'm going to go ahead and buy it. Right. And so until the consumer decides to dramatically change their buying habits, the beast is still going to be fueled and you can't pivot fast enough. So there you sit with the same supply chain, the same processes in place. And so China is back, my friend. And I think you nailed it there. It's not going to go away.
No, we're back to the great competition, and just in time for us to start renegotiating our agreements. So that brings us to halftime with the Cap Logistics Global Trade this week, and that means it's time for 2 more topics, and with it, another fine one from my friend Doug. So Doug, let's get to number 3.
Yes. So this one is strays a little bit from traditional supply chain, but I was reading something the other day and it kind of sparked my memory because we are forward thinking, right, Pete? We don't focus on what happened. We focus on what's going to happen. And I think the overall consumer shopping experience is going to dramatically change, right? And that is going to impact the logistics. So I'm going to take you back to a movie reference, right? I'm always good at giving examples. So if you can picture in any good rom-com movie, whenever the lead actress is about to get married, there's always a scene in the movie where all of her friends get together in the bridal shop and they're all hanging out and they're in this special room and they're checking out all the dresses and they usually have some caviar and drinks and they're having a good time. And then something happens like in Bridesmaids and they eat something wrong and it's a shit show at the end, no pun intended. But if you take that idea of the shopping experience, I think what I just described is going to happen more and more. So envision a retail store where you have to go and book a time to come in and shop. And you walk in and you have a very personalized shopping experience, right? It's very it's personalized, it's private, and you essentially order things that you want to try out online. So they ship them to the store and you have things that you've pre-selected. You're not going through racks. You can try them on. Let's throw in some of the AR and VR, virtual reality and augmented reality, where you can go into a changing room and try something on and flip a switch and change the colors. And then if you don't like it, you just leave it in the store because there's a fulfillment center in the back of the retail store. And because it's a personalized shopping experience, it's not the masses in there. They can have a smaller footprint in the retail establishment to have that personalized experience. So that makes it easier for returns. And then they can use the back office to ship out. So it's related to a personal shopping experience. And if you can take, like I said, that rom-com bridal experience that you see in the movies and just throw in some drinks and your buddies and your gals and you go do some personalized shopping, I think that is going to be more commonplace. And it's not going to be at these high-end retailers. It's going to be places like Target and Old Navy and the Gap. That's my take. Maybe a year or two out, but change in personal shopping experiences.
Well, I really wanted to come at you with I'm way too much of an alpha male to watch rom-coms, but the fact of the matter is, man, I loved Bridesmaids, and that scene in particular slays me. And I'm also the guy that ended up binge watching Downton Abbey in its entirety from the first episode till its end with my girlfriend when I had COVID this year. So I'm in no position to make fun of the fact that you've probably watched, I don't know, When Harry Met Sally like a dozen times or something. But the reality of the kind of shopping you're talking about, I think that there's so many different avenues for that personalized retail that we're going to see more of, because it brings people to a destination, which it gives a motivation for the retail to exist and gives people a reason to get out of their homes. Folks are going to get tired of looking at a computer screen or a phone and buying things out. And they need a motivation to engage in that retail experience. I agree with you. And car shopping has even become something that people are doing the significant portion of online before they go look at the car, at the actual car, and do the negotiations. Some people are buying cars on platforms like Carvana and some of these other ones where they're purchasing the car sight unseen and having it delivered and driving it around for a few days before they finish the paperwork. And from what I understand, most of the time they do not return the car. Once the car is delivered, they end up buying it, which is a pretty interesting paradigm. So I agree with you. This idea of having people go someplace to have that kind of an experience makes a lot of sense. I'll be fascinated to see if it does come down to that lower level of retail, if that ends up being something that can sustain it, because that's a volume business. So will it be more of these box clubs that have become very popular, where you give people your sizes, you talk about what you're into, and it just shows up? And because of de minimis and these Chapter 86 entries, if those end up coming straight from our friends in China, or if that becomes more of a curated experience from a domestic distributor. But yeah, it's going to take a lot of creativity again, or we're not going to have shopping malls and strip malls. We're just going to have people buying things on their phones based off of advertisements from their augmented reality glasses.
Yeah, very true. All right, let's wind this thing down. We're in the fourth quarter, my man. What do you got for your second topic for this week on global trade this week?
Yeah, remember when I told you China's back? Yeah.
Yes, I do.
America's not. So we're back into sucking again, I guess, when it comes into trade imbalances. The statistics for the first couple of months, not good, my friend. We are back into being the Joey Chestnut of international traders, just swallowing and gobbling up and shoving everything into our mouths like the gluttons that we are from China. And at the same time, we are exporting less and less. So the main driver of this economy is exporting high-tech, new economy, high innovation products, which drive these great jobs that everybody wants. And then trying to find ways to not be so dependent on lower and low cost consumption goods from China, but rather having American companies bring that opportunity to manufacture those goods in other countries, therefore reducing the trade imbalance. That playbook has kind of been thrown in the shredder apparently, and it continues during this issue to continue. So not only is China globally lighting it on fire while the pandemic continues, and I still wait to get my vaccine, But it would still appear also that America is just, it's back to its bad habits. It's like somebody who does Lent and decides they're going to be on a diet and try to lose weight, and then right after Easter, they're ordering a large pizza, eating Haagen-Dazs, and drinking Mountain Dew on the couch. We've gone right back to every bad habit that we were trying to avoid, and we've doubled down on it. Every indication is that, if anything, we're probably launching more manufacturing opportunities overseas and consuming even more Chinese goods than we were before. And that's just a prescription for more dependency on Chinese.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like the trade imbalance has been happening every year for my lifetime, right? I don't know, since the mid '70s, we've never been able to flip the script. We've been in imbalance forever, and every year breaking new records as far as the deficit and the challenge, Pete. And this is definitely more along your lines, is nothing seems to happen, right? I don't know if, since the US dollar is kind of the world's currency and people want to invest in a stable investment, right? So throwing more money into the US seems, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going with this thing, but I don't know if that will ever change. And you talk about all the statistics and business school analysis, that how can that sustain, but it has for 45 years, and the only thing I can think of is that people want a piece of the US dollar. It's the world's currency in the baseline, and it's a good investment. So I don't know.
When you and I were in high school, and you had long hair and I had goofy hair, that I'm sure your pictures look a lot better than mine. There was great fear amongst the American people of a Japanese takeover. Do you remember? I mean, you must remember that, right?
Yeah,
sure. It was everything on the news was about meaty, about the Japanese trade ministry and what they were doing to target and aggressively come after American opportunity. And it was every night. It wasn't China we were worried about, it was the Japanese. And Japan, slowly over time, ended up not having enough people to really compete with their economy. And then second of all, American innovation just gobbled it up. And now that's the fear, is that we continue to out innovate China at an amazing pace, but now we're worried about China just stealing it. I mean, China went in and with some of their international partners orbited Mars recently, and the joke was, we should congratulate the Chinese on being able to steal enough technology from other nations and other space programs to build their own space program and orbit Mars with other nations' space technology. I mean, it was a well-founded international gag amongst aerospace companies that most of what they had was just direct knockoffs of other space programs. It was sort of a common joke. And what it's going to take is a strong, developed innovation economy, coupled with our ability to maintain security around it. If we don't begin to really double down and lock down on cyber, really begin to get forceful about trademark and IP enforcement, and begin to treat counterfeit theft like what it is, which is stealing state secrets, there won't be much of an economy for us to actually defend.
Well, Pete, I have to say that you've brought me over a little bit on the cybersecurity. That's been a common theme with some of your topics, and hadn't given much thought to it. But it is a common thread that weaves through everything that we've discussed and brought to the table. So I am a believer now, Pete. You brought me over.
Just like
monkeys. That's right. That's right. You had me at hello, I guess, or maybe I should say you had me at cyber theft. Maybe that's a better way to say it. So, but Pete, as though we're having a lot of fun, unfortunately, our time is up on Global Trade this week. I want to thank Cap Logistics for making all of this happen. For supply chain and transportation needs, please visit caplogistics.com. And I think they officially say this is a wrap, Pete. So I want to thank you for joining me again today. And I want to thank the team at Cap Logistics for making it happen. Next week, we'll catch you later for another edition of Global Trade This Week.